Welcome to Fanboy TV. This week we're talking about board games. Not games made out of boards, but actual fun things to play. You are in for a good treat. So come join us here for the rest of the show. Why? Because I told you to. And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking those of you that are interested in board games that came out after 1978 are glad you're here for this segment.
Very much so. So today's topic is the board game renaissance. Because let's face it, board games are on the rise.
It's great. I'm thrilled.
And we've come a long way since the Chutes and Ladders days to today.
Back in the day, I mean, for most of us, when you're growing up, you had Monopoly, you might have had Clue and Chutes and Ladders and things like that. And you're like,
Chutes and Ladders sucked.
And you just thought, oh my God, board games are the most boring things in the universe. And then in the 90s, we rediscovered Europe. Apparently, we went back colonization-wise and saw what they'd been up to for a while. And this is what we came back with.
And we couldn't have come back with anything better.
I agree. You know, screw Schnitzel. I would rather have the board games.
And it's their sense of, I think the reason why it works is because their sensibility of board games about being together with friends and family and just having a good time together, which is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to live online, which is what video games allow you to do. And video games rose, but now they're getting stale and there are people understanding board games are different. Every single game on this table is completely different.
Yeah.
They're not all copies of Call of Duty, you know?
Yeah, really?
Yeah, really.
I thought that Raw was a first-person shooter.
It should have been. Hey, let's go shoot the Egyptian. Anyways, so there's this entire community that's just been on the rise of board games. Like, I joined Board Game Geek when it first started. And it was just a small thing, and I didn't look at it for years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it has exploded.
Well, it also really helps a lot that Will Wheaton's show Tabletop on YouTube, huge help with board game renaissance. Up until fairly recently, if you wanted to get any of the board games that you see here, you had to go to a specialty shop or buy them on the internet or know a guy who knows a guy. But now a lot of them are getting into Target, which is where most people get their first kind of family board games. So you can get Settlers of Catan, for example, in Target. I believe you can get a lot of the Mayfair games. You got
a lot of Mayfair games. I got Star Trek Catan there.
Yeah. So let's tell people what makes some of these different from the boring-ass Monopoly and Sorry and things along those lines.
We want you to join this conversation. Phone number's on the screen, 472-2255. So let's just start with the sheer fact that board games have gotten a lot more involved, complicated, and interesting.
Yeah. I agree with that. Most games, I would say that most of your intro games can be played in about half an hour these days, whereas a game of Monopoly, for example, and I will never stop bashing on Monopoly, you'll want to slit your wrist before that thing is done, and there's no leveling up, there's no making it more interesting or anything like that.
You have no love for Monopoly?
I have no love for Monopoly. If you like Monopoly and you think, I just need a card game that I can collect some cards and take some money, try Ticket to Ride. I think you'll enjoy that a lot more.
Which I asked about Ticket to Ride because I see it everywhere. I just don't know if it's a game that I would like because...
Well, imagine you've got Monopoly, but it only takes about an hour instead of everything, and you actually are doing something the whole time.
I'm like
You're spending money on things that you actually care about, and...
I care about my hotels, thank you very much. Okay? But I will have to say, I'm not that big of a fan of Monopoly, but they make the themed versions. Like, I just got the Adventure Time version of Monopoly.
Yeah. But do you ever play those? People will buy the theme. No,
I will play, yes.
You will take it out and you'll play with the meeples. You're like, oh, look, I've got a little Adventure Time figurine. Whatever. And then you'll get bored with it, put it back in. You might take the figures back out and use them in a better game.
Well, I agree with the Monopoly, and so the transition would be Ticket to Ride, which is a train building game.
Yeah.
And it's huge, people.
Yeah, they're also there's a phase where everybody was doing farming games that were a lot more fun than actual farming. And a lot of what I have up here are some of the older, more classic games, like Carcassonne, for example. I absolutely adore this one. It's super simple. Basically, all you do is you take these tiles, you put down one per turn, and you just link them up in a way that makes visual sense looking at them. Yeah. So if you've got some green grass, you're going to attach it to more green grass. If you've got a road, you're going to attach it to a road. And by the time you're done, you've managed to build up this like fake medieval map of Europe. It's so much fun. And then you can kind of score off of the things that you put down there. It sounds really simple, and a lot of the good games, I think, are deceptively simple with the
They're
rules,
very
but the
deceptively
strategy turns into where it gets really interesting.
And I have to laugh about this one because you'll notice a lot of these games are now on like the Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah.
I have this on Xbox Live Arcade. I have Catan on Arcade. So if you really just want to test it out, download the demos and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. They're so much fun because you have to think it's not mindlessly, oh, I hope I don't get on a slide and eat a cookie, which gives me a stomachache. Who's going to not eat a cookie? I mean, come on.
A girl on a diet?
True.
That's, yeah.
Might be the only reason.
Even then.
Games are the same, just so you know.
Yeah, and
That's
on top
exactly
of that, a lot of these games, the whole point of board games is to get out of your house and be more social, as you were saying earlier. And so it's a really good excuse to get, say, 4 to 6 friends together, do something that's only going to take an hour or two at the most, and then you're still hanging out, you've had the shared experience, you've had a good time, you can do other things. It's a great excuse just to bring people together, which is why you might have noticed on Meetup, for example, there's a ton of board game groups.
There is. So, Anna,
What?
what do you think is contributing to this rise of board games?
That people want to spend more time together.
Now, how did that happen when we live in such virtual social lives? How do you think it happened that people are realizing, hey, you know what? We can go get together and play a game.
Are you sure we can do that? Are we allowed to actually be within 500 feet of one another after that restraining order?
I'm not really sure, but we're not talking about it on the radio on TV because we swore not to.
Oh, we're not actually both here right now. He's a projection.
I am. I'm a holographic projection. We talked about that last week. Anyway, so
So why would you want to bring people, especially horrible people like us, into the same room?
what do you mean horrible? Talk about yourself there.
You're the one with the
Because
restraining order.
I absolutely love sitting down and playing a game and eating with people and drinking with people and
It's a
seeing
social
how silly
experience.
the game will get after 4 or 5 hours. Because Talisman, because we sit and play
Yeah,
Talisman all
some
the
games
time.
do take
and
a good long time. You don't have to though. Like if you're just breaking somebody in, if you think it looks intimidating, there's a lot of good half-hour, maybe 1-hour games. And then once you've got them, you can play something like Talisman and then
Yeah.
spend
Just
5
super
hours
fun.
on.
As long as you have somebody that's not going to sit there and right when you're about to storm the doors, going to quit the game.
Yeah,
We had
that
somebody
could be a
like that.
problem.
Well, the only
couple
reason
weeks
that would
ago.
happen is if you're running really late. Like like Chris-Rachael said, there's a lot of short games, but there's also a lot of games that can take you all day.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I like to play sometimes. We'll set aside a whole bunch of time. We'll get together and we'll play the Doom board game. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Doom board game, but it is ridiculously hard. Simply because that's my job to make it hard. I'm the GM. I think they died multiple times, and it was fun because it wasn't a video game, but it was based on a video game, and we had more fun doing that than playing the actual video game
I
because
think
we're here together.
I think one
Yeah.
of the things that's really helped with the rise of board games has been, and I hate to say it, but like kind of the fall of RPGs and the rise of board games are pretty closely linked. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people really got into playing RPGs, but the problem with it is you've got to be there every week if you're going to do tabletop gaming. And if you
Oh,
have to miss
yes.
a week, it messes up everybody else in your campaign. People get boyfriends or girlfriends, people
Life
get
goes
jobs,
on.
life goes on, and it's just really hard to keep that whole campaign together for a long period of time. With
Yeah.
a board game, you can still have a core group of people that come over like every Tuesday for board games or whatever, but if one of them misses it, well, we're sorry you're not
Yeah.
here, but we can all still have a good time together.
Exactly right.
It doesn't throw a wrench into it for everyone.
Which I like pen and paper games, but they're a totally different class of things.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
time consuming. They're all about it. Whereas I could pick up Raw and we can get together and play it in about an hour.
Yep.
And
And if you don't have to already know the rules or anything like that, like with most of these, you'll usually have one person that already knows the rules and can kind of teach it and guide
that
you
would be
through.
me most of the time. I'm the rules learner.
I brought all of these, so I tend to know.
Which I know the rules for that one. The rest of them in Cascarone, but I don't know the rest of them.
Carcassonne.
Okay, whatever. I call it Cascarone.
He partly likes pasta, is what he's trying to
tell
say.
ya.
So,
I
but anyway,
find that
so
interesting.
RPGs kind of got on the wane as board games were rising, but because it was the same core thing, people got together with RPG groups because they wanted to do something fun, they wanted to do something imaginative, they wanted to have a reason to make everyone come back every week, and then life. So with this, you still have all that, but
You have all that and more. And I also think the fact that a lot of the board games now are mimicking video game mechanics, like
Yeah.
the Doom board game or Level 7, which you're going to hear about a lot today because it's awesome. They have that video game mentality, so it's an easy transition, easy to learn because we are in a gamer state where we all think in video game terminology.
I think it's fascinating because I think of games as coming more from the RPG side of things and the LARPing side of things, and you're like, no, it's more from the video gaming side. And I think what's actually happening is they're getting influenced by both, and the end result is fantastic.
It is
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we're getting some real gems out there. Pandemic alone, Like,
Dude,
I would not have even
that
thought
was
about
amazing.
that game.
Yeah.
And here's what you'll find when you look at these board games. It looks deceptively simple. How hard can
They
it be to cure
all look
4
deceptively
diseases?
simple.
Exactly.
Well, we lost in one round.
Yeah.
One round, okay? And that's the fun part of it because we love it and we just keep resetting. We work together when we can actually manage to work together. We're not backstabbing each other like in zombies.
Yeah.
It's just the sheer amount of variety of games out there. You go to like Dragon's Den or any game store like
Yeah.
Will to Play, you will find hey, you know what? I like furries. Well, there's a furry board game. Or hey, why do I have to go there?
Well, there's also an increasing number of charitable organizations that are springing up with gaming as the reason to get people together. Because it used to be that you would have like a golf tournament or something like that. But,
Golf's anymore.
but this weekend, there's actually here in Austin, there's a 2-day gaming event going on for Bastrop Fires.
Yes, I actually saw that. I got the email about it.
Yeah.
And it's great.
I think it's fantastic. Like $30, they're bringing all the games. You can bring your BYOB, BYOF as well, food, and just hang out with a bunch of people. I think that's so much more accessible than, again, something like a golf tournament or whatever. They might not make as much money as the golfers because they tend to be a little bit richer if they're into that particular sport.
It's definitely. I'm over here building a map. Sorry. I'm like obsessed.
The other thing about it is if you've got really attractive pieces, like we've got some Cthulhu-shaped meeples over here that are adorable. I will beat you if you take my part.
Camera.
We've got some camel-shaped pieces as well as the little Cthulhu-shaped pieces and things along those lines. It's more fun to play with when you've got something actual visceral and physical that you can touch that's just goofy looking. And the Carcassonne tiles that I mentioned, you can't see it from over there, but he's over here just assembling a map in the middle of while we're on live television because it's just hard not to when you can see something like that. And bringing these things into the real world, I think, really just makes it a ton more fun than just playing online. Something you can actually touch.
And the quality in the games have gone way up since back in the day because, you know, we all had Candyland, and it was fun for a while. You were used to just the bare bones, but these games today, they cost a pretty penny sometimes. But
you're going to get a lot of play out of them.
Worth it. The replay value is worth it.
Yeah.
I think the Doom board game, because it's not made anymore, can cost you up to $120 if you're lucky.
Well, it also depends on how nice you want things to be. Like Settlers of Catan over here, this is considered a classic board game at this point. I think it's 15 or 20 years old. I don't know exactly.
I think it's 20.
And if you really, really love it, and a lot of people really, really do, I, for example, am writing a cookbook based on Settlers of Catan.
Are you really?
I am, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
But you can
You're always busy.
I am. But you can buy a $300 beautiful set of Settlers, the base game, with hand-painted tiles that actually have some three-dimensional structure to them, if you just want it to be the most beautiful thing in your house.
Yeah.
Or you can buy the $20 version at Target. I like the fact that you've got that range with it as well for people that are looking at it and saying, you know what, this isn't just a game. It's also art. It's something I enjoy showing off in my home.
Yeah. Now, see, I never thought about it like art. I just like pulling them out to have fun with. Like, I've got Catan and I've got Star Trek Catan.
Catan in particular, I think, really inspires people to think of art because the way the tiles look, as I pull some of these out, the original ones were all based on actual
paintings, right?
on paintings.
Yeah.
So you had these very abstract paintings, and so you see people making clocks out of them. You see people making all sorts
Here's
of
the
the
rock
water, yeah.
or water.
But you see people making all sorts of things out of these. Like I've seen a lot of Settlers of Catan clocks. I've seen some other like lamps and artwork that they're just repainting with the tile. It's really easy to do when you've got a hex shape. You can just link things up fairly easily because hexes.
Modular boards are another great, I think, invention of the board game universe because
That's
you're not
something that they borrowed from RPGs. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, but you're not limited to, hey, you've got this space to work in, like Catan. It's a different board every time.
Yeah.
Because you have to make it. There's a lot of Explore As You Go games, like Level 7. I keep going back to this. We love those.
He knows what games he likes. Some other games that I would recommend. Seven Wonders. I don't know if you've played that.
Seven Wonders
is fantastic. It's another one that can be played in about half an hour. Small World.
See, Small World is on my list, but I'm not quite sure. When you look at it, you kind of, sometimes box art isn't exactly the best way to sell a game. And Small World is one of those ones you're kind of like, is this going to be a really involving game, or is this going to be one of those?
Give Small World a try. It's a good game.
Yeah. Whereas we go for games like Flux and Face Eater. And
I wish I'd brought some of those this time. I also have, when people say board games, they also mean a lot of interesting alternative card games these days. So I've got a couple called things like Give Me the Brain, the old zombie games and whatnot. That, again, it's still a board game in the broadest sense if you're playing it on a table and you have decorated cards that don't have spades and hearts on them.
Yeah, technically, yes. And the other aspect that I like is that most of the best games out there, especially Catan, they expand on it.
Yes.
Then you get Starfarers, Seafarers, the original Settlers. I think they did it for Ticket to Ride as well. They did
Ticket to Ride has a
Mars,
zillion of them.
things like that.
Mars would be awesome. Over here with Carcassonne that he's playing with, I own about 6 of the expansion sets, and so you can take it from being about a 45-minute game to being about a 2-hour game with the same number of people if you add in all the. Oh yeah.
That sounds like
There's some really good expansions.
It is awesome, and it keeps the games fresh, and
And it makes
totally
them a little bit more
customizable.
money as they move along and get you to buy more expansion packs, and I am totally fine with that.
I'm always fine with expansion packs.
Yeah.
I know
So Talisman
Talisman alone is in its 4th edition, has like 10
Dude.
expansion packs to
Yeah.
it, right, Anna?
something like that.
9.
9
It has the main board and 8 expansions right now.
Main board and 8 expansions for Talisman. So it's
plus a bunch of different characters that you can make and
Yeah.
design
so that
and everything
Talisman
else.
seems to be like the most RPG centric game that we know of.
Dude, it's awesome.
Because you create your own character, it's everything without the pen and paper and
Yeah.
D20. You know,
Actually,
can we
we
say on
also-
TV? Doesn't Wizards own D20? We're getting like fined for saying that now.
Really?
Yeah, they own D20, the terminology, so you can't really refer to it as a D20 anymore.
It's a die 20.
Yeah, it's a die 20 now.
Interesting. So anyway, yeah, I think that the board game renaissance is fantastic. I think it's going to continue moving on because a lot of people are buying these games, and now they're finally starting to play them. Now they're starting to have kids. They're starting to play them with them, and it's just really fun to see an entire family sitting down and playing Settlers of Catan, and then Dad having to be like, "And I can't tell you about the game I met your mom that I was playing. It was still Settlers, but
We settled something else. Anyways,
What about the D&D board game?
which D&D does make some good board games. However, they do. I have some of them, like Dungeon, but they have a habit of revising their games a lot. Like this is the 8th edition of Dungeon. I've got the 5th edition of Samurai Swords, and games evolve over time. So hey, there's a game that a long time ago you missed out on. Wait a while, someone will remake it into a new edition,
yeah."
You
Oh,
know?
we also have Steve Jackson games here in Austin.
which is
Yeah,
fantastic.
they
I
do the
love those
Munchkin
people.
line, and they've really just a lot of fun games. So that's another one where it's the card
Yeah.
game that you add things onto. They're starting to just expand beyond the Munchkin
They
universe
are,
and some other things.
Like, are they the ones who make Gloom?
Yes.
Gloom
yes.
is an awesome game. And they're so magical. Like, those are clear cards. Your point is to make people go crazy. I mean, we have a habit of picking the games where we can backstab each other the most. We have a really hard
Yes.
time working together.
There are cooperative games out there,
There are a
by
lot
the
of cooperative
way.
games, and even the cooperative games, we have sometimes have a hard time. Like, I'm surprised we beat Pandemic because you have to play together. If you backstab each other, you'll lose in one round.
I was mostly letting our lovely studio audience know that you don't have to play the backstabby games. There's
Yeah.
things you can do with people that are cooperative.
But if you're like us and want to be crazy,
We
you
can't,
do
sorry.
whatever you
Yeah.
want to do. So, what are some of your favorite games you like to play with people? We'll start with Chris-Rachael.
Well, I brought a lot of them, honestly. Oasis is an older game here. It's got camels. It's got a trading element to it. Anything that gives you an excuse to be really social, because I'm horrible when I'm playing that particular game. Like, I'm auctioning off my daughters because it's an auction game. I really also like any type of map building game, which is a style of game where like what he's doing there, exactly, where you're actually building the board as you go along. I really, really enjoy that. And I also really like games that just have really cool parts to them.
Yeah.
So Niagara, for example, which you can't really see much of here, you actually have to push something down a river, and you've got all these other parts that you're messing around with while you're playing with it. And just that physical interactivity makes it a lot of fun for me. What about you?
I really like Talisman, and I really like this game,
Carcassonne?
the Hunters and Gatherers version.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a trip. There's another game I like, and it's called Sequence, and it's a board game.
Mm-hmm.
And you're matching. It's kind of like Connect 4 on a flat surface with
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen
playing
Sequence.
cards.
I like games that we can get as many people as possible. Like Apples to Apples is one of our classic
Yes,
ones we love.
yes.
We-
Or these days, Cards Against Humanity.
Which isn't, I haven't gotten yet, but you need to bring it to one of our eat outs one day because we can clear out a restaurant when we play Apples to Apples.
Yeah, oh, you're going to like Cards Against
And
Humanity.
then I, of course, love the Doom board game and the Zombies board game. But right now, it is, for me, it's all about level 7 simply because I didn't quite expect that game to be what it was. I got it on a complete fluke.
Luckily,
and,
you're going to get a review of this later
Yeah.
on if you're wondering why he's so excited by it.
When are
and
we going to play it?
I really like miniatures games as well.
Okay.
Like, I used to do Warhammer 40K, but now they've kind of simplified them.
Tells
Like
you
Dungeon
everything
Command
you need to know.
is, Dungeon Command is very small. So is War Machine from Privateer Press. I like the smaller scale, not the, hey, we're going to spend $500 on an
Yeah.
army. I like miniatures gaming. It's fun, but I like it constrained to a board. It's my favorite aspect. I just like boards. So I think those are some really fun games. But I think the thing I like the most is when I discover something completely new. Like Pandemic wasn't even on my radar until I got it as a gift.
It was awesome.
Oh, whatever. And I discovered Face Eater the same way. Wait till you play Face Eater.
Okay, that actually sounds like a great game.
It is an awesome game. And I like, and that's the funnest thing is when you go to these places to play games, you'll discover something really fun that you're going to like.
And if you decide to go to a board games meetup or just go to a game shop that happens to have an open gaming night, you're going to meet people. If you're trying to make friends, that is a great way to do it because you have people there that will have brought something they're really passionate about in the form of these games, people that are always looking for new people to play with, and people that are willing to teach it to you. So you can walk in, dumb as a rock, slightly drunk, just looking for friends, and you'll do pretty well.
Except if you see the person sitting there alone, I wouldn't go near them because they're the overly obsessed gamer that you will not have any fun with. I've played with a few of those. Life was never the same after that.